Imagine a performance arena filled with the dazzling lights of the disco period of the 1970s, the roar of devoted fans, and the dazzling attraction of ABBA's irresistible melodies. Subtle levels of tension lurked beneath the sequins and flawless performances, underlying the legendary harmonies and bright grins. By revealing a previously unknown aspect of Agneta, Frida today shocks the world and sheds light on years of hidden scandals, conflicts, and personal problems. Frida and Agneta's relationship was far from harmonious, in contrast to the smooth harmonies of ABBA. Agneta, the quiet blonde with an obsession with perfection, and Frida, the passionate brunette with a raging temper, frequently found themselves at odds. They were completely incompatible in every way. Tensions rose behind the scenes as Agneta's more measured and controlled demeanor stood in stark contrast to Frida's energetic theatrical appearance. Artistic differences weren't the only source of their problems. According to reports, Frida became increasingly irritated by Agneta's cold demeanor and her determination to keep to herself throughout tours. There was tension in the band because Agneta avoided Frida and her desire for friendship. Arguments over ideas weren't the only thing at play here. It was an internal struggle stemming from jealousy, bitterness, and whispered complaints. The current allegations by Frida put Agneta in a negative light. Manipulative, to the point where she discreetly undermines others around her while exploiting her weaknesses to garner sympathy. ABBA wasn't the last source of trouble for Agneta. A whirlwind of broken relationships, dysfunctional families, and unstable emotions characterized her private life. In the wake of her public divorce from Bjorn Ulvaeus, Agneta fell into a pit of despair and isolation. She battled emotions of desertion and insecurity as she tried to come to terms with her family's disintegration. As she tried to maintain a healthy balance between her roles as a famous mother and a real one, her connection with her children deteriorated. Every relationship that she had was tragic and full of drama. Thomas Sonnenfeld, a younger man, had a very scandalous affair with Agneta. Their brief romance ended tragically, leaving her profoundly devastated. Gert van der Graaf, a Dutch stalker, was possibly the most odd character she encountered. With no way out of his obsession, not even with the help of the law, their disturbing relationship became a real-life thriller. Across Europe, people were scratching their heads over this strange romance that revealed Agneta's frailty and dubious judgment. It wasn't only Frida with whom Agneta was at odds. Even with other prominent music industry individuals, her connections were tense. Her bosses and producers frequently complained that she was too controlling and unwilling to compromise, making her a pain to work with. Unwilling to give in to commercial pressures, she fought with record executives for creative autonomy. While this obstinacy helped her stay true to her artistic vision, it drove a wedge between her and her co-workers and gave her a reputation for being unpredictable. Tensions would rise in the recording studios as Agneta demanded numerous takes, fixating on insignificant minutiae that irritated the producers. There was a lot of tension since she wouldn't take criticism well. As her co-workers treaded carefully so as not to arouse her erratic anger. Some said she had an innate talent for harboring resentment, which she would use to escalate even little conflicts into bitter feuds. Maintaining positive professional relationships was a challenge for Agneta even when she was working solo. There was a lot of tension behind the scenes of her individual ventures, even though they were successful. Her moodiness and unpredictability were described by her collaborators. She had a talent for alienating people due to her worry and perfectionism. Years of solitude brought on her popularity strengthened her emotional barriers. Rumor had it that she had unexpected changes of heart, leading to intense fights during studio sessions, slamming doors, and projects being abruptly halted. Those around her were left perplexed and fatigued as she went from being excited one minute to withdrawing and distant the next. Even in artistic communities, she was wary. Because of her contempt for the media and her reluctance to participate in promotional efforts, she was difficult for publicists and business managers to work with. Agneta felt that interviews were intrusive and that people often took her reserved answers as a sign of arrogance. This further alienated her from the industry and made her seem like an unapproachable recluse. Her solitary career may have seemed glamorous at first, but it was actually a battleground of failed partnerships, missed chances, and damaged professional connections. Her unique artistic qualities eventually became the walls that kept others from connecting with her, leading to broken relationships and unsaid grudges. Agneta was not taken well by fame. Her mental health suffered as a result of the stresses of fame, constant touring, and intense media attention. Her anxiety, dread of flying, and sadness were so severe that they consumed her life. Frida felt Agneta's phobias were more about control than real fear, and the band's tension and limited touring schedule were both caused by her extreme dread of flying. Agneta's decision to live a secluded life after ABBA wasn't entirely voluntary. Her delicate mental condition necessitated it. She went into relative hiding on her Swedish island house, avoiding the spotlight as much as possible. The vicious cycle of loneliness and paranoia that characterized her final years was exacerbated by her solitude, which in turn exacerbated her challenges. As she meandered around the reverberating corridors of her home, the passage of time became hazy. Tortured by the dread of being forgotten and plagued by recollections of the past. A prisoner of her own fears and remorse, the once vibrant celebrity eventually faded into oblivion. She frequently experienced depressive episodes accompanied by intrusive thoughts and an overpowering feeling of fear. I felt overwhelmed by even the most basic of activities. As a harsh reminder of a reality she couldn't bear to confront any longer, Agnetta's sleepless evenings were plagued by the echoes of faraway applause. The weight of her seclusion caused her connections to crumble, and her phone accumulated dust as calls from old pals went unanswered. Someone who lived in perpetual terror and distrust of the outer world turned out to be an adversary. She felt her last vestiges of privacy being eroded with each news article and photo. No one, not even her relatives, was able to penetrate the emotional barriers she had erected. Agnetha was left to face the demons she had created as the renown that had once bestowed her admiration turned into a curse. The blessing that catapulted Agnetha to international notoriety and the curse that robbed her of her feeling of normalcy were the two sides of the same coin for her. The spotlight that had been her ambition frequently seemed like suffocation, even though she had millions of adoring supporters. She felt a stark contrast between the admiration of onlookers and the desolation she experienced as the stage lights went down. While alone in her house, Agnetha pondered the seeming contradiction between her need for and fear of human connection. She yearned for real connections, but she was wary of everybody who approached her, seeing hidden agendas in their seemingly sincere smiles. A pattern of dodging calls, avoiding people, and, worst of all, avoiding herself became her daily ritual. The world continued to pass her by as she gazed out her windows on a frequent basis. Stuck in the past, when the days of ABBA's greatness seemed both far away and cruelly close. There were too many echoes of what-ifs and could-have-beens for her alone experience to be considered pleasant. Memories of unfinished business, friendships shattered, and love that slipped through her fingers like sand were whispered by the deserted rooms of her home. Strangers' faces began to appear in her mirror reflection, serving as a continual reminder of the relentless march of time and the solitude she had voluntarily chosen but much regretted. With each calm day that slipped by, the walls that had previously shielded her from the mayhem outside began to feel more and more like a stifling prison. A chilling reminder of how fleeting stardom is, the gap between her former life as a commanding figure of raucous audiences and her current life in relative obscurity was intolerable. With the acclaim dwindling but the echoes remaining, haunting every peaceful moment, Anita's story is not merely about the price of fame but also about the intolerable burden of living in its aftermath. Even though ABBA's music will never go out of style, it's impossible to ignore the obvious problems in their personal relationships. Frida's forthright confessions have revealed Agnetha's secret struggles, illuminating a legacy of artistic genius and inner sorrow. In the midst of Agnetha's brilliant prosperity, there is emotional turmoil. Her narrative is a tale of contrasts. An enchanting voice that captivated millions, concealing a heart wounded by sorrow and strife. While everyone was dancing to ABBA's catchy hits, Frida had finally mustered the courage to play a darker, dissonant tune that was actually playing in the background. Infused with the sourness of treachery, this tune reflects the cracks that lie behind ABBA's dazzling exterior. The glitz and celebrity were just coverings for a reality where secrets festered, love soured, and friendships fell apart. Although her name will live on in music history, Agnetha's legacy is marred by scandals, broken relationships, and the lingering effects of regrettable decisions. The stark contrast between the joyful beats that characterized ABBA and the murky depths of Agnetha's private life depicts a figure who was both a celebrity and a lady ensnared in her own mythology. A lasting impression that makes us wonder if success is ever truly achievable without giving something up is what this legacy is ultimately about. And whether the temporary glory of fame was worth the sacrifice Agnetha made.